Today we're going to talk about a composer who was basically the original epic soundtrack designer for worlds that didn't even exist yet. Let's get into it.
Okay, so think about your favorite epic movie or a massive open-world game you've gotten lost in. What's that one thing they all have that just pulls you in and gets your heart racing?
You got it. It's that huge emotional music, right? The score that makes you feel like you are right there. That sound is like everything.
So, who came up with that massive sound? We're going to go way back, long before movie theaters or gaming consoles, to meet the one guy who was already building entire worlds with music. His name was Gustav Mahler.
So, how did he pull it off? Well, first things first, to build a bigger world, he realized he was gonna need some bigger tools.
Right, so the orchestras back in his day just couldn't handle the sounds he was imagining. It's like he was trying to run a brand new, high-def game on an old computer. It just wasn't going to work. He needed to supercharge the orchestra itself.
And I mean a serious upgrade. We are talking about orchestras with over 100 musicians all on stage at once. He wasn't just trying to be loud. He wanted this huge sonic palette, more colors to paint with. And this quote right here, this is the key to everything. See, for Mahler, a symphony wasn't just some nice music. No, it had to be like the world itself. It had to be big enough to hold all of life's messiness and beauty.
But here's the thing. It wasn't just about cramming more players onto the stage. Mahler totally changed what each instrument was supposed to do.
He basically started treating the sections of the orchestra like character classes in a video game, you know? Each one got its own personality, its own special abilities, instead of just blending into the background. So let's take the woodwinds, for example. Usually, they were kind of just there. Mahler, he put them front and center. Suddenly, they had all these new skills. He'd use the tiny piccolo for these piercing high-pitched shrieks, and then the massive double bassoon for these deep, rumbling tones from the depths. They could sound like birds or the wind, creating these really strange, almost magical textures.
Okay, next up, the brass section. For Mahler, this was the sound of pure power and high drama. He actually put military trumpet calls he remembered from his childhood right into his music. He would even tell the musicians to point the bells of their instruments straight up at the ceiling to get this incredibly sharp, cutting sound. The brass became the voice of victory, of tragedy, and of those absolutely massive, world-ending climactuses.
So what about the strings, the heart and soul of the old-school orchestra? Yeah, he gave them a total makeover too.
Instead of that typical smooth, beautiful sound, he had them do all this wild stuff, like tapping the strings with the wooden part of the bow to get this creepy clicking sound, or having them slide between notes, which sounds like this ghostly wail. He even used these things called harmonics, these super high, eerie tones that just seemed to float in the air. So he leveled up the whole orchestra and gave every section new special abilities. But then he went even further. He started adding stuff no one had ever put in a symphony before. Yup, cowbells. Seriously. He'd spent his summers out in the mountains, and he wanted to bring that peaceful, distant sound of cattle into the concert hall. It was a real-world sound, a little piece of nature right in the middle of the music.
And on the other end of the spectrum, he brought in something a little less peaceful.
I'm not kidding. A literal, giant wooden hammer built just to make this huge, terrifying thud. He used it to represent these crushing blows of fate in his music. Can you get any more dramatic than that? But probably the craziest, most ahead-of-its-time thing he did was how he played with the idea of space itself. Get this. He'd have musicians, like a few trumpet players, stand out in the hallways of the concert hall and play from off-stage, so the sound would just drift in from far away, creating this amazing 3D effect. It's like he invented surround sound for your headphones, but like 100 years earlier. So, all of this stuff, the huge orchestra, the weird instruments, it wasn't just for show. It actually created the blueprint for the music we hear all the time today. Think about it. The next time you hear that gigantic sweeping score in a movie or a video game, you're basically hearing Mahler's legacy. He's the guy who showed everyone that an orchestra could build a world, tell a story, and capture every sound imaginable, from a distant cowbell to a tragic hammer blow. He gave us the language for what epic sounds like. So I'll leave you with this. Mahler took sounds from his world, cowbells, hammers, and put them in his music. If you were writing a symphony about your world today, what sound would you add? The click of a mouse? The notification buzz from your phone? What's the sound of your world?
Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.